Hello everybody, welcome back to my channel. I am Gebo the Shaman, and today we are talking about past lives actually. Past lives and like evidence to support the things that I've been told and that my instructor has been told by the light beings. And yeah, it's an interesting kind of thing. Because well, so if you look at on my channel, go to the channeling session that I had with Denney, my teacher, and watch that video before you watch this. This will make a lot more sense. Okay, so just go over there to my channel, youtube.com/@GeboTheShaman, and then, go to where it says channeling session with Denney, and then watch that video. Alright, so essentially, what the light beings told my teacher, Denney, or Mahadeva as I call him, what the light beings told him was that this is hard to kind of get into. It's a very touchy subject for me. It brings up, a lot of stuff, so it's like, I don't want to sound crazy. Just telling you guys this, and it's like a fear of public perception. Oh god, what will people think that I'm crazy for saying this? Honestly, it doesn't really matter. I don't care. I really. But also, so this is like, it's something that I have to address on my own too, because there's some history there, and that history has led me down a spiral. Anyway, so before we get off on tangents and whatever, I'm going to read you this script. Okay? So when my teacher, Denney, when he made some contact with the ETs, they told him that he was the king of Atlantis. They told him that he commanded, like, he was the king of the world. He commanded, like, all these priests, all these armies, all this whatever, this and that, to, and he was the most powerful king on planet Earth. Now, this was before the calamity that kind of reset Earth. So, if you look at what's called the Younger Dryas, 13,000 years ago, study that. Study, like, what was that? There was a calamity that destroyed civilization, that destroyed everything that humanity had built for the last, 13,000 years before so like 26,000 years or so. The thing is, I don't know, and I can't pinpoint when exactly humanity was formed. When humanity came into, some people want to call it evolution, whatever. I'm not gonna get into that debate today, whether it's evolution, creation, or this or that, or whatever. I could care less. But anyway, so from the dawn of mankind, which is well before what we actually know of in the historical record. There was a mankind that predated the earliest historical record of humanity. Because I think the earliest historical record was Sumer, right? And yeah, and there was, Australopithec, there was like this, early humans, like Australopithecus, I think, Homo erectus, things like that. I'm not exactly, you know, a scientist here, but just thinking back into what I know, or what I think I know. So all this time went by. We had human civilizations before the flood, before the destruction of Earth, the Younger Dryas period. And then after that, we had, took a while to come back from that. But then we had Sumer, the those civilizations that we know of in like the that area between the Tigris, Euphrates, and like the Israel area, the Levant, and things like that, Canaan. And, you know, so that's where we think humanity stemmed from. Humanity grew from. But there was a time before that. So, anyway, we'll get, well, that stuff doesn't really matter as much as what I'm going to be telling you guys. Like, I'm not a historian, and my my thinking is, foggy on. It's been years and years since I've studied that subject and history and school and whatever. So, whatever. All right. So anyway, so there was a Muslim Arab writer, or like an author or something like that, historian or whatnot. And it's in the historical record that there was something called King Surid. This man was written about in historical records, or in, they say, oh, this is just a mythology. This is just something that was made up. Well, that's debatable, because you don't know that something is false unless you've proven that it's false, So, anyway, so what I'm going to discuss with you is that the story of King Surid, Surid. And so I have here on, let's see here. So supposedly this could be, maybe, possibly, could be Mahadeva, or my teacher, Thunder Wizard, or Michael Denney. And so this is kind of giving me a headache as I talk about this. Wow, that's interesting. It's manifesting. Okay. So, what I'm trying to say here is that so this is worldtext.com. You can look it up on Google. Appendix 2. So, so apparently what the light beings told my teacher was that he was the king of Earth. He was, the king of Atlantis. He was stationed in Atlantis, but then he had, branched off to different areas of the world. So in that time period, Egypt was a lush, green paradise, almost like Florida, very flat, but also tropical, lush, green. And it's not like the desert that you and I know of it now as being. And the pyramids were actually covered in I forget what it was, like a copper, or not copper, but like a limestone, I think, maybe. Anyway, that made them super really shiny. Very shiny. But before we get there to the pyramids, because the pyramids weren't built yet, so let's just read this story. So apparently, Michael Denney, my teacher, was King Sorid, or thereabouts, something like that. And then I was one of his high priests. I was a high priest in that life. Again, referencing back to the channeling session that I received from him. And you can actually look that up on my channel. So King Sorid, and this says, Ben Termodin, Ben this and that, this and that. This is the lineage. This is the lineage of King Sorid. This guy who died in this year, 967 AD, professes to relate the Coptic tradition, which says that Surid, and then gives all the things. One of the kings of Egypt before the flood built the two great pyramids, and notwithstanding, they were subsequently named after a person called Shedad ben Ad, that they were not built by the Adites, who could not conquer Egypt. On account of the powers which the Egyptians possessed by means of enchantment, that the reason for building the pyramids was the following dream, which happened to Surid 300 years previous to the flood. So it's interesting that we already have, the Adites could not conquer Egypt on account of the powers which the Egyptians possessed by means of enchantment. That the reason for building the pyramids was the following dream. So nobody could conquer us, the Egyptians, because of our magical power, because of our spiritual power, right? I find that very interesting. Okay, so he had the following dream, which happened to Sorid 300 years previous to the flood. It appeared to him that the earth was overthrown, and that the inhabitants were laid prostrate upon it, that the stars wandered confusedly from their courses and clashed together with a tremendous noise. The king, although greatly affected by this vision, did not disclose it to any person, but was conscious that some great event was about to take place. Soon afterwards the king had another vision, which so much alarmed him that he repaired to the temple. He repaired, to the temple of the sun, where with great lamentations he prostrated himself in the dust. Early in the morning he assembled the chief priests from all the nomes of Egypt, 130 in number. No other persons were admitted to this assembly. When he related his first and his second vision, the interpretation was declared to announce that some great event would take place. The high priest, whose name was Philemon, or Iklimon, related a dream which he had from years before, in which he had a year before, in which the firmament is described as like a dome over the earth. This is their way of thinking about it. It's like a dome. It's like the thing. I would describe this as the 3D, 5D barrier. Okay, so the thing that keeps the earth and the 5D, right? 3D, 5D barrier. I would assume that's what this is. Or that's at least one way of describing it. Okay. The high priest related a dream in which he had a year before, in which the firmament descended till it overshadowed him, and the king overshadowed him and the king like a vault as they sat upon the tower of Amasis. The king then directed the astrologers to ascertain by taking the altitude whether the stars foretold any great catastrophe, and the result announced an approaching deluge. The king ordered them to inquire whether or not this calamity would befall Egypt, and they answered yes. The flood will overwhelm the land and destroy a large portion of it for some years. He ordered them to inquire if the earth would again become fruitful, or if it would continue to be covered with water. They answered that its former fertility would return. The king demanded what would then happen. He was informed that a stranger would invade the country, kill the inhabitants, and seize upon their property, and that afterwards a deformed people coming from beyond the Nile would take possession of the kingdom, upon which the king ordered the pyramids to be built, and the protections of the priests to be inscribed upon columns and upon the large stones belonging to them. And he placed within them his treasures and all his valuable property, together with the bodies of his ancestors. He also ordered the priests to deposit within them written accounts of their wisdom, and acquirements in the different arts. So this is like a library almost. And sciences. Subterraneous channels were also constructed to convey to them the waters of the Nile. He filled the passages with talismans with wonderful things and idols, with the writings of the priests containing all manner of wisdom, the names and properties of medical plants, and the sciences of arithmetic and geometry, and they might remain as records for the benefit of those who would afterwards comprehend them. After describing the construction of these 3 pyramids, Masudi says, in the Eastern Great Pyramid were inscribed the heavenly spheres and figures representing the stars and planets in the form in which they were worshipped. The king also deposited the instruments and the thuribula with which his forefathers had sacrificed to the stars, and also their writings, likewise the position of the stars and their cycles, together with the history and chronicles of time past, of that which is to come, and of every future event which would take place in Egypt. He placed there also colored basins for lustration and sacrificial purposes. With pure water and other matters, after referring to the deposit of the bodies of the priests in the colored 3rd pyramid, Masudi describes the guardians assigned by the king to each pyramid. The guardian of the Eastern Pyramid was an idol of speckled granite, standing upright with a weapon like a spear in his hand. A serpent was wreathed around his head, which seized upon and strangled whoever approached by twisting around his neck. When it again returned to its former position upon the idol, when everything was finished, he caused the pyramids to be haunted with living spirits and offered up sacrifices to prevent the intrusion of strangers and of all persons excepting those who by their conduct were worthy of admission. The author then says that according to the Coptic account, the following passage was inscribed in Arabic upon the pyramids. I, Sordid the king, have built these pyramids and have finished them in 61 years. Let he who comes after me and imagines himself king, imagines himself a king like me, attempt to destroy them in 600. To destroy is easier than to build. I have clothed them with silk. Let him try to cover them with mats. Well, all right. So a couple things there I wanted to get at is So we see an example of these pyramids being used as like a library, like a store, a wealth of knowledge, like a vault of knowledge. And, well, a lot of power as well. A lot of power. And I also know that modern day elites are using these tools, these gains in knowledge and things like that to, to maintain control over humanity. Once again, enchanting, using magical power, enchanting, whether it be weapons or tools or whatever to gain control, to master. And from what so let's look at that. So this pyramid, the pyramids, right? They were built to withstand a major flood. Now, what do we know about the pyramids? Well, I happen to know that they were built in a way that was within a percentage of accuracy that no other tool or means of construction could achieve. Meaning that, they were built to be watertight. They were built to be watertight. They were built with bricks and accuracies of, so small. It was, I saw this one video on YouTube where one guy was trying to put a credit card in there and he couldn't. He's just like, I can't even fit a credit card in here. It's like, it's that thin. It's that, that, accurate. And, you're like, okay, how can these people build something so precise, so accurate? And, well, they did it, one, because they had advanced technology. They also did it because this was, if you talk about, man, wanting to be known, wanting to have a legacy of something. That's one way of doing it. That's, yeah. So, um so yeah, I mean, it's incredible. And another thing that they mention is that they built under the pyramid to have columns of water. Columns of water. And what do we see with this new discovery? I've heard of it about, maybe a month ago, where these guys basically took a satellite and had this imaging done of the pyramids, and they made a 3D kind of sketch out of it, and it was these big giant, almost I think copper tubes or something, big giant tubes that go down a mile or something like that, And then they had like this wire around them, around these tubes. And it's like, wonder what those are supposed to do. Those were supposed to protect the earth. Those were supposed to carry electricity. And it's like a how can I describe it? Like almost like an electromagnetic pole. So like, the like a north pole protecting the earth, like keeping anything away from it, like repelling things from the earth, like giving it a anyway. So what would happen is these pyramids were also built, and along with other technologies, were built to protect Earth and preserve Earth. So, whether it was like mantra chanting or, some kind of a technology that would surround Earth and protect Earth and, all that, or whatever it is. I mean, yeah, it's, and so, so apparently this is like some pending karma that I have. So I was a high priest, and I came to incarnate in Egypt because of my heart center, my love for humanity, I just wanted to envelop everyone and everything in my love, in my heart. My heart was so big, it's so gigantic, so huge, it's like I was basically like I don't know what you would describe it as, maybe a saint or something like that. And so with that, you know, I can say myself and King Sorid, Michael Denney, we worked our asses off. We tried as hard as we could to, to make things work, to carry on things as far as we could, And I've been also struck with the possibility, or like I think this is me connecting the dots. I could be wrong. I'm happy to, I'm happy to be wrong. I'm happy if this is not true, but I'm led to believe that I am an incarnation, or here's how I'll put it. My soul essence is tied to or connected to Vishnu. Now, if you don't know, Vishnu is part of the Hindu Trimurti, the three ones, the three gods. So Shiva is the third eye, right? Brahma is the navel center, the creator. Shiva is the destroyer. And Vishnu is the heart center, the preserver, that says, hey, I want to make this good experience, this great experience, last as long as it can. I want to preserve this. I want to, and that ties in with that priestly life where I was like, hey, I want to preserve this Satya Yuga. And so, let me see if I can pull up real quick. I'm gonna switch over. There we go. Let's see if I can pull up real quick this Yuga cycle. Okay, let's see. Okay. Here it is. Let me see if I can open this image in a new tab. There we go. Okay, cool. So then I go over here. Boom. All right, wonderful. So what I want to focus on is right here. So we are right here in the present, in the bottom left, present. We are right here. And then directly opposed from us is this period right here. I know you can't really see it because it's even blurry for me to read. But this period right here is the Younger Dryas period. From here to here. And this right here is Satya Yuga. So everybody has a different, thing about, oh, we're still in Kali Yuga and whatever. No, we're not. We are in Dwapara Yuga. And so let me explain what each of these yogas means. So Satya Yuga. Satya Yuga is when we are in full connection with God, with our soul essence. There is no separation. We are visited by, ETs, light beings. Are, they're connecting with us, they're communicating with us on a constant basis. Some of them even came down and incarnated in Earth and had that soul connection to that. And there was a choice. You could either raise your frequency up to go up out there, or you could, if you wanted to, you could come down here, to the Earth. And so there was no separation. In the Treta Yuga, the red there, Treta, that is like where there's it's almost like 2/3 of the population is spiritual, or has a spiritual connection. This is leaning towards more density, more heaviness, more like, just separation. So whereas in Satya Yuga you'd have, at the height there where it says 11,500, all of us had spiritual connection. And what King Surid and I in my past life tried to do was extend that, that upward cycle for as long as we could. Like, even if we had to just make it totally even, that'd be wonderful. But going down, no, that's not that's not what we wanted to do. That was awful. To lose, think about it, to lose our spiritual connection, spiritual technologies, it's like it's very difficult from going to that beautiful, blissful spiritual connection, having that constant, okay, I know that I'm a human, I know that I'm down here, but I also have that connection to my soul, that I am an infinite being, that I am, that there's more to this life beyond my physical body, that I can, once I die, or once I physically shift my vibration up, then I can go up there, or, whatever. It's like this connection, right? And then, it's like going down that wheel, down that cycle, down, down, down. So, Treta Yuga is like, you'll have, spiritual saints, spiritual, these sadhus, these gurus that are connected with spirit. They've had to, work their whole life at getting this spiritual connection. That's what Treta Yuga is. Where where all the other people are just totally disconnected, totally, caught up in this matrix, caught up in the illusion of Earth. That, oh man, this is all there is. There's nothing beyond this. That's the illusion. That, your human body and your environment on Earth is all there is. This is where you get atheism, like, oh man, I'm not gonna believe in that garbage of spirituality or God or whatever, you know. And atheism as a whole is different subject. I could go on that for hours, but anyway. Because that's just, atheism just the rebellion against the Jewish, Christian, Islamic God. The Abrahamic God is, it's like being a child. It's like, no, this is bad. I don't want to do this. I don't want to, I don't believe in this Abrahamic God or whatever, so I'm an atheist. Well, you see how that creates dualism? It's like, oh, you have to either have this, believe in this thing, or not. Either you believe or you don't. Believe, don't. Believe, don't. And so this splitting of the mind happens. This dualism. Whereas the true reality is somewhere in the middle. The true reality is the Abrahamic God real? Yeah, he's one of many gods. The original god of the, Canaanites. Well, the Canaanites actually used to be a very polytheistic culture. And then, the Jews got it, the Canaanites got invaded by Babylon, and the, Jewish, aka Canaanite, leaders came back and said, yeah, we're gonna rewrite this whole history. One, we didn't, it's like we're the victims now, and our God is going to be Jehovah, Yahweh. Yeah, what is it? Yahweh? Something like that? Anyway. So that's more a Kali Yuga thing. The whole Christianity, Islam, Jewish thing is a Kali Yuga thing. So in Treta Yuga, you're like, 60%, or 60% like have a spiritual connection. And in Kali Yuga, I'll save the Dwapara Yuga for next. Kali Yuga, nobody has a spiritual connection. That's what we call the Dark Ages. Kali Yuga was the Dark Ages. Look at the time period there. 700 BC to 1700 BC. Dark Ages. Okay. Or 1700 AD or something like that. I don't know. Doesn't matter. Alright. So you have the Dark Ages where nobody has any spiritual connection and people were chopping each other's heads off and all kinds of crazy shit. That was the time of, I think, Napoleon and whatever. People were dying a lot. They had, the Black Death. They had, what was, I don't know what kind of diseases were rampant during that time, but people thought, doing stupid things like, peeing on a cut was a good thing to do. They would like cure their illnesses in all kinds of ways. Okay, you have to drink bile now. You have to freaking do this and do that, and it was like nasty shit. So that's Kali Yuga. So gross. I'm glad I wasn't born during that time. Man, that would have sucked. Alright, and then we have Dwapara Yuga, which is the yellow section that you can see there, right next to Kali Yuga. And Dwapara Yuga is where 50% of the population has a spiritual connection, spiritual understanding, or whatever you want to call it. And I'm talking about Earth's population, not just the particular country's population. Okay, so Dwapara Yuga is like, oh yeah, there's 50-50, some spiritual connection, there's some, whatever. And so while Treta Yuga was like a 60-30 kind of thing, or 74 or 60-30 or whatever, 66-33 or 70-40, whatever. As like 2/3 of the world's population had a spiritual connection, so that was an okay time, decent, not horrible. But what ended up happening after this Satya Yuga started to, to go downwards on that downward spiral, was humans began to have a lot of jealousy, have a lot of envy, have a lot of, negative, like, or I want to take that guy's lunch or whatever. I want to take that guy's woman and, whatever. Take that guy's house or whatever. And so there was a lot of fighting, and there was a lot of, battling and things like that. A lot of, whatever. And so during this time, how it played out was the thing that I'm getting is like, okay, King Sorid, he was like bailed out. He's like, okay, he refused to listen to the Pleiadians. He refused to listen to the ETs that were telling him, hey man, you gotta stop using this technology. It's going to destroy the world. It's going to fuck everything up. And he didn't listen to that advice. And, he's like, okay, well, he in his heart, he wanted to, he wanted to save humanity from any kind of negativity, he wanted to have that spiritual place, that spiritual time. And, and I was his high priest, man. And I said, okay, you want to do this thing? Let's fucking do this thing. Let's keep on using the technology. Let's keep on doing it. Because, I'm Vishnu the Preserver. I want things to be good for everyone for all the time, all eternity. And I had an attachment to wanting to preserving I had an attachment to preserving this sacred time for everyone. And so that's where things get weird. Is it was like I didn't want to believe it. I didn't want things to get bad. I thought we could, through all my might, through all of my spiritual power, I used every last ounce of my spiritual power to save the world, to save Egypt, to save Atlantis, everything. And yet, it didn't work out. And so naturally, I'll bring this back here. So naturally, I felt like a failure. I felt like a total, complete fuck up. Right? And so and part of me feels like I built the pyramids. I was kind of the one that instructed the construction of the pyramids. And it's like when you have something good, when you have a good time, you don't want to let go of that. You want that to last forever. It's like, can't we just have the good times? And I guess not. But, it's just, yeah, it weighs on me heavily, this feeling of I'm such a fuck up. My intentions were to save humanity, but I ended up causing more damage. And so well, I can say that the ETs have great compassion for both myself and my teacher, Michael Denney. I do not have as much compassion for myself. And so what happened was, after things had all crashed and burned, and I guess flooded, Great Flood, which was, I think what happened with that is that there was a comet, a meteor, or whatever you're gonna call it, and it hit Earth and that was done on purpose to destroy this technology that was going to be misused and ultimately hurt humanity in the future, because humanity was not equipped for that, to handle such tremendous technology. Other elites I know went to King Sorid and asked, and said, hey man, we can control minds with this. We can control the whole world. We'll get rich. We'll have such control over everything. And King Sorid hated that. He was like, fuck that shit. No, I'm not doing that. No way. King Sorid was trying to use that technology for, to keep humanity's consciousness at such a state where we could easily interact with, higher consciousness, spirituality was easy for us, The connection between us and the divine felt so palpably, and it was beautiful. But then once that started crashing down, that time period, it was like, it was, everyone lost their essence. Everyone lost their minds. Everyone lost their soul, their spiritual connection. And so everyone had a choice, though. I believe that. Everyone had a choice whether they wanted to go ascend with the light beings or stay with the humans. And it was something that my spiritual counselor said in the session was that he said I was holding on to something, holding on to something. I don't know what that is. I had no idea what that is. And then he said that, holding on, but then you chose to let go. I still don't know what that means. And that's okay. Okay. So, what I'm getting from this is I had. Excuse me. I'm getting tired over here. I had I had an attachment to things being good, things being happy, things being sustained, things being easy for humanity. Like, my personality was just wanting things to be easy, wanting things to be sustainable, wanting things to flow, not have all this, trauma and the things that were leveled against humanity at that time were just awful. I mean, this is the time when people were killed and taken hostage, And I imagine that my big heart, my compassion for humanity, I mean, I could have chosen to save myself. I could have chosen to just, hey, see ya, bye. I'm going up with the ATs. Like, screw you guys, I guess, If I would have done that, I would have felt. I would have. It would have been a betrayal. I at least feel like it would have been a betrayal to what my job truly was with being a priest, being a conduit of a heart, of the universe's love, the universe's heart center. And so I guess that was what drove me. I couldn't. This is very hard for me to remember. I couldn't stand the thought of, abandoning people. I felt like I had such great compassion for them that I wanted to be there with them, and to help them, and I couldn't help them. I couldn't help them. Even though I tried my damnedest. Did so much work. You know, sacrificed so much. You know, worked very hard. Tried everything I could in my power. And I couldn't prevent people from experiencing destruction, negativity, evil. This shit is not easy for me. And my heart centers feeling energy as I say this stuff. Let's see. So, I don't know sorry. I don't know everything that happened in this life, in this past life as a priest. But you know, I'm trying to remember. I'm trying my damnedest to remember. And I know the ETs have said that, you know, they don't want me to, like, well, they want to have, you know, hands off. They want to have they're handling me with kid gloves because they know that I have a lot of trauma. Not just not just in this life, ironically, but in a lot of past lives. And you know, so it's kind of they're kind of leaving it up to me to kind of say, hey, here you go. You know, do with this what you want kind of thing. It's like instead of, yeah, I think I would have a harder time if they would just say, oh, you're this, you're that, you're the, you know. It's like, but yeah, so anyway, I know this video's getting long, guys, but I just appreciate anyone who's made it this far. And why I'm taking so long on my thoughts and conveying stuff is just it's a lot. It's a lot, man. All right, guys. So we're gonna leave it there for now, and yeah, I hope I get one of my goals, one of my deepest desires is to get my priestly power back. Wouldn't that be wonderful? And so, yeah, going back to those old feelings, I felt like I felt defeated. I felt like a loser since I couldn't do the impossible. And my attachment to people, my attachment to others' karma, others' lives, others, you know, situations that they put themselves in. I took it upon myself and kind of said, oh my god, it's my fault. And so I'm not going to let that happen anymore, be the case anymore. Even though that's my tendency to, you know, caretake and all that stuff and whatever, but yeah, that's me. Alright, so thanks, guys. Love you guys. I hope you've gotten some benefit from this. And I will talk to you later. Alright, guys. Peace. Love you guys.